I've just reread the first 2 volumes of Heartstopper and rewatched the entire first season. Why do I do this? Why am I like this? Why am I like this? Why do I like pain? So the world's most single gay is back with another Heartstopper video. And I want to thank everyone who watched my Heartstopper reaction because, oh my god, that just did insane for me. Like, thank you so much. So I thought, let's milk it. No, this is something that I wanted to do for a while, actually, ever since it got announced it would be a Netflix TV show. I wanted to do a sort of comparison like I did with my From Book to Disney adaptation series that I did last year, but I have done book to movie, book to TV show adaptations before, so it's not just because that video did well, okay? Now the whole purpose of this video is to go through pretty much the entire first season of Heartstopper and the first 2 published volumes of Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, and kind of compare and tell you guys what was different, what was similar, and all of the great things about how the Netflix TV show adaptation is a fantastic adaptation. It's probably one of the best book to screen adaptations I've ever seen. I've said it. And I ain't taking it back. And I will go through each episode and the first 2 volumes of Heartstopper and go through it in a lot more detail. But firstly, I do want to, give a little bit of context to the show, the graphic novel series. It was originally a webcomic that was published online on Tapas, and it still is available to read for free on that website. I will link that down below. It was then self-published with a Kickstarter campaign, and then it was picked up by HarperCollins to be published, published mainstreamly? I don't know, not self-published. Look, I turned 30 yesterday, okay? My mind has gone. So Alice Oseman has been the creator of the Heartstopper story for quite a while, and it's probably one of the reasons why the TV show is so fantastic of an adaptation is because Alice Oseman wrote it themselves. And I feel like that really did help with translating it from the page to the screen, especially when you see just how faithful the TV show is to the graphic novel series, but also how Alice took what they did in the graphic novel series and transformed it into what we see on Netflix. So season 1 of Heartstopper pretty much covers all of volumes 1 and 2 of Heartstopper, the published versions. And after rereading the first 2 volumes again, because I literally just reread all 4 of them last month for a reading vlog, which you haven't seen, link down below, there was almost everything from the first 2 volumes that was put into the TV show, as well as a lot of embellishment, especially since, they had to cover 8 episodes, and, you can read these 2 volumes in like 2 hours if you wanted to, so you can fly through the graphic novels, and you would still need more content for, 8 half-an-hour episodes. So there were some sneaky little things that Alice Oseman put in there. And it is important to note as well that it's not 100% accurate, and I don't think any adaptation ever should be or could be. I mean, I would love to talk to Alice about this. I do have an interview with Alice Oseman linked down below as well if you want to check that out. I would love to ask Alice about the decisions behind a lot of the things that changed. So I want to find out the decisions behind different things. There was loads of things that were different that I could ask about, but I do think that the TV show that we have now is as perfect as you can get it of an adaptation. The graphic novel series itself definitely does focus more on Nick and Charlie. You do get Tao, Elle, Tori, Darcy. You do get the other characters as well, who are more main characters in the TV show than they are in the graphic novel series. So with the TV show, they are embellished a lot more. You get to see a lot more of them as characters, as people, and you see their relationships, how they develop, without the need of being in every scene with Nick and Charlie. So I love that about the TV show so much. It's one of the reasons why I adore the TV show is, I mean, for me personally, is seeing Elle, flourish. Oh my god, I love Elle so much. But I do love all of them. I love every character. Also important to know that there are 2 characters from the graphic novel series that are missing, and they are Oliver Spring, who is Charlie's younger brother, as well as Alid. And Alid was actually replaced by Isaac. Now, I don't know why Alid was replaced with Isaac. I do think that it's because of radio silence and, having that open for adaptation as well. But I would love to know, everything. I would love to know everything, okay? So, Alice, if you're watching, hit me up. We also have a new character called Imogen who adds a lot more, I would say drama. There's not really, drama on Heartstopper, but it does add a little bit more to it, especially when we get towards the latter half of the season, and especially since we blitzed through the content of the first 2 volumes, so we did need that extra kind of character. And just an FYI, I really do like Imogen, by the way. I feel like she gets too much crap for no reason. She is innocent and able to defend. I mean, it was a little bit weird when she was like, I'm not homophobic, I'm an ally. I mean, other than that, that was a little weird, but her heart was in the right place. So anyway, let's get into the comparison then, and I'll take it episode by episode, I think, because I feel like that's probably the best way of doing it. Otherwise, everything will just be all over the place. So with episode one, oh my god, I'm just thinking back at the TV show, sorry. Anyway, episode 1. I want to flip between the graphic novel series and the TV show. So this is my master's admission, okay? This is going to be the dissertation of my life. So both the TV show and the graphic novel series start with Charlie going to meet Ben in a library. In the graphic novel series, Ben is actually there, whereas in the TV show, Ben fobs Charlie off and says, let's meet break instead. In the graphic novel series, Ben is kissing Charlie, and at the first bell, Charlie's like, okay, I need to go. Whereas in the TV show, when they do meet a break and the first bell goes, Ben is the one who's like, oh, I need to go, wipes his face, and then goes away. I feel like in the graphic novel series, it was made to seem like Charlie, his heart wasn't really in it as much as it is in the TV show. And I think that's why that kind of role was switched, and it was Ben who was like, wipe his face, leaves, because wanted it to look more like Charlie had his heart more into this relationship that he had with Ben. That's what I assume. We'll get into the meat. Then we go into form, and Charlie gets assigned a seat next to Nick Nelson. They say hi. It's the same in both. It is the same in both, and I love that. There is a bit of a montage of hi in both of them. You have it in the TV show where they're just going hi, 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 hi. Hi, 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 hi. Whereas in the graphic novel series, it's changed up a little bit. It isn't just hi, but I kind of like the whole repetition of hi, you know, kind of reinforces that idea that there is like this repetitive meeting and they're just kind of falling into each other's paths. And it just seems to keep happening by almost chance sometimes. And that feels a little bit more, I don't know, like fate almost. I don't know. Look, I could do an essay. I could do a bloody essay on Heartstopper, okay? Don't tempt me. Nick's pen does explode in both of them as well, which is hilarious. The whole kind of interaction happens the same way as well. Charlie helps him, and they have a little bit of banter, you know. Charlie hiding during his breaks during school seems to only happen in the TV show. I never saw it happen in the graphic novel series. I love that we still have that interaction with Tao and Charlie when Charlie says, I don't just fall for any boy who's nice to me, because that again also happens in the graphic novel series. What I do love about the TV show more though, in this kind of topic about Nick and Charlie's infatuation with Nick, is when they're talking about Nick being straight. And in the graphic novel series, the idea of bisexuality wasn't really brought up in that moment. Whereas in the TV show, we have Charlie say, you know, bisexuality exists, you know, and, you know, Nick could be bisexual. So I like that bisexuality was more acknowledged there while they were assuming Nick's sexuality. And yeah, I think the TV show did that really well. Charlie does see Ben with his girlfriend at the gates in both, and he does start to ignore Ben, and that's kind of where their kind of tension begins to really come from. When Charlie does want to try and break off with Ben and stop what they were doing. And then Ben ends up meeting Charlie in school and asks him in the graphic novel series why Charlie isn't responding to his texts. And then that's when Nick comes into it. I'll get into the what happens next in a second. But what is different about that in the TV show is that in the TV show, there isn't that confrontation after Charlie says, I don't want to meet up with you anymore. Instead, earlier on in the episode, we had Ben in the corridor and then Charlie bumped into him saying hi in front of Nick. And then Ben's like, why are you talking to me for? Like, who are you? Kind of thing. I feel like that was kind of almost like flipped. So we have that confrontation in the corridor. Right after the moment in the graphic novel series, we have that amazing moment where Nick is like, Charlie, I have something to ask you. And then Charlie has this fantasy about Nick coming out to him, being like, oh my God, I want to be with you forever. I love you. I'm gay and all of this. And then turns out Do you want to join the rugby team? Honestly, love that moment from the graphic novel series. So I was really glad that the TV show adapted that so beautifully. And it was like, and it come across as very comical as well. And I feel like it nailed that kind of comedic angle to that. It's almost quite line for line, that scene. Especially when it's like, oh, you think I'm weak then? And, you know, all of that. That's very, very similar. And then we do have Charlie accepting joining the rugby team. And then he hears the boys outside talking and theorising about him. Like, will he actually be good at sports? You know, everyone knows he's gay. Does he like sports? Like, that happens in both. And then Charlie walks in and everyone's like, hi. The tackling scene happens pretty much the same too. And Charlie getting a little better at rugby and practicing happens very well in both of them. Right after that moment as well, we have Ben wanting to meet up with Charlie, and then Nick notices something's wrong. I feel like in the graphic novel series, you get a sense more that like Nick realizes that more than he does in the TV show. I don't know how in the TV show Nick really knew something was wrong with Charlie, because Charlie didn't really come across as very upset or anything when they parted ways. But then the scene does end up unfolding pretty much the same too. We have Charlie meeting up with Ben and Ben forcing himself onto Charlie, being an absolute and then Nick saves him. In the graphic novel series, he does call Ben a fucking prick and tells him to fuck off. Whereas in the TV show, he just goes, go on, piss off. Who said it best? So I don't know why Netflix has such a huge thing against saying the word fuck, but doesn't mind saying the word piss. I don't know. But afterwards, Nick is picked up by his mum, Olivia freaking Colman. Olivia Colman! I still can't get over it. I cannot get over the fact that it was Olivia Colman. Oh my god. But that scene pretty much happens almost word for word too. So that was a really good scene. And oh my god, that moment just felt more enriched. You know, when I reread Volume 1, it just felt more enriched knowing that Olivia Colman is Nick's mum. It just felt, oh my god, it hit different. And then that's the end of episode 1, and it's also the end of part 1, because the graphic novel series, at least volume 1 is split into 2 parts. We have part 1, which is Meet, and part 2, which is Crush. Volume 2 is just one long part, which is part 3. Episode 2 is also called Crush, so we have part 2 of volume 1 called Crush. Episode 2 is also called Crush. I feel like with season 1, the first 5 episodes were very closely adapted from the graphic novel series. And then episode 6 and 7 and 8 had to kind of really do a lot of its own original content in order to fill up the runtime. I do find that interesting. So part 2, episode 2, Crush, are pretty much nearly exactly the same too. So we have Nick reaching out to Charlie about Ben. He's very concerned about him, and that's when you kind of really start to get a sense that Nick really cares for Charlie. And you get the sense that more time passes in the graphic novel series than you do in the TV show, but you do still have that moment when you're waiting for someone to reply, and you see like the 3 dots, and you're like, okay, come on, like you've been writing for ages, what are you going to say? The TV show does capture that moment very well. Kit and Joe are just fantastic actors who just really sell the scene, and they don't even really have to do much. All they have to do is like sit in silence, and oh my god, they need every single BAFTA going. And Charlie sends the heart in both the graphic novel series and the TV show, and I was so excited about that moment because like you see Nick smile, and then in the graphic novel series, there's no movement really, but Nick's like kind of lying down, almost as if he's like, like he's just like kind of relieved almost, or just feeling some strong emotion that's like overtaken him when Charlie sent that heart. I don't know, I like it in both. The conversation between Nick and Charlie about the whole Ben situation was definitely a lot longer, and you get to see it more in a flashback form in the TV show. That makes sense because obviously the TV show is more visual. It has to translate well, whereas in the graphic novel series, it is like long text and things, which I feel like as an audience, well, it's not as entertaining to just read text on a screen when it could be, acted out in a flashback. So then we have Tao trying to get Charlie to give up his infatuation with Nick. Again, I feel like both the graphic novel series and the TV show do a really good job at showing why Tao is very hesitant to kind of get on board with the friendship between Charlie and Nick. And Tao's been there for Charlie when Charlie was getting really badly bullied, and he's a really close friend of Charlie, so we can see him sort of slip away. But I think what the TV show did better was showing that friendship drift, because we had Tao feeling very lonely and like isolated away from Charlie gradually as the season went on. And in the graphic novel series, because Tao isn't really always there, or not as much as he is in the TV show, you don't really get a sense of that. And also at this point as well, we haven't really met Elle or Alice really, and Tara and Darcy, so it really has just been Nick and Charlie. More time passes in the graphic novel series than the TV show, but both they do have the moment where Nick shows Charlie a photo of Nellie and then invites Charlie over to meet Nellie. We have a really cute chat with Tori, which pretty much does happen in both the graphic novel series and the TV show. We go to Nick's house and Charlie meets Nellie in pretty much the same way. He comes to the door and then he's like, oh my god, you're so adorable, I love you, and all of that. Like, that pretty much happens the same way. They play Mario Kart, Charlie beats Nick, and Nick has that whole speech about how Charlie is really good at everything, and Charlie's like, no, I'm not, no, I'm not. And we have that cute moment where Charlie is like, putting his hand over, and that was a dramatic reconstruction or reenactment of that scene where Charlie puts his hand over Nick's mouth and he's like, shut up, I'm not the great at everything, and then he sees the snow outside, he's like, oh my god, it's snowing. They go outside, and I love that scene as well. I love it so much. Nick licks the snow, they make snow angels, they have a snowball fight, Nellie's there, and it's just like really wholesome and cute. And what I love in the TV show too is the animation of the snow. Oh my god, incredible. I love the blending of both the graphic novel series and the TV show together. I love moments like that, and it happens a lot as well, especially when there is like some romance blossoming. You see, you know, some Alice Oseman leaves or flowers. We have that talk with Olivia Colman, Nick's mum, in both of them, where she is like, Charlie isn't like the other friends, like you seem to be a lot more yourself around him. And we have that moment of both. Love it. Any scene with Olivia Colman is just instantly stop as my heart. We then also have Tao tell Charlie about Tara Jones. So in both we have the idea that Nick and Tara liked each other when they were younger, like 3 years before. Like they were almost a thing. They kissed when like they were 13. And, you know, that's kind of hyped up a lot, is a sort of barrier between Nick and Charlie. So Charlie thinks that Nick is straight, and there is no possible way that Nick likes Charlie. And what I love in the graphic novel series, which doesn't happen in the TV show, there is a similar scene that happens, I think it was in episode 8. She asks him what's wrong, and he says, I've fallen for a straight guy, and then he cries to Tori, his sister, who I love. There is a similar scene that happens in episode 8 where Charlie is upset about being the cause of some like drama, and he cries to Tori wishing that he like sometimes didn't exist. And so we did still have like an emotional moment between the brother and sister, and I love that they still had a scene like that, because I do love the whole I've fallen for a straight guy and then cries to his sister. I do love the way that developed the relationship between Charlie and Tori, so I'm glad we had something similar later on. We do end up getting Nick going to Charlie's house. Like honestly, like this is just so alike. It's just amazing just how much you can watch the TV show and see the graphic novel series come to life. And we have that movie night, then we go into the movie, they're watching the movie, and Nick is, you know, watching Charlie sleep. He puts his hand, again another dramatic recreation, puts his hand like over Charlie's, and he's kind of questioning whether we should hold Charlie's hand, and you know the seeds have fallen for Charlie, you see in that moment. And I just love how animated that is in the TV show too, with the sparks and everything. Charlie does end up waking up and is like, have I missed anything, you know, kind of like that. Whereas in the TV show, it just cuts to the next scene, which is when Nick says goodbye to Charlie and has to go home. So then Nick does end up going home, and he starts looking at whether he is gay or not. And that is, again, such a huge moment, and one that I think was adapted so brilliantly, especially, you know, with Kate being able to convey such strong emotion and the confusion that Nick is feeling at that moment, because he's like, what am I? Like, what's happening to me? You really do get a sense of that in both the graphic novel series and the TV show. You do get more of a friendship dynamic in the TV show as well, with Tao, Elle, Isaac and Charlie, more so than you do in the graphic novel series, because we barely really see Alice in the first 2 volumes of Heartstopper anyway. So with Isaac, I mean, Isaac doesn't really get a whole lot to do either in the TV show, but I do feel like his moment is coming. Season 2 Netflix, you hear me? Season 2. And I feel like it's going to be Isaac's time to shine. But it's very true to kind of Alid's role in the graphic novel series, where it's kind of, he's there, but he doesn't really do a whole lot. But yeah, Tao and Elle are definitely more hyped up. And then you do get to see Elle, Tara and Darcy become closer as well, whereas you really do not see that at all in the graphic novel series. But what you do get to see more of in the graphic novel series is the friendship that Nick has with his friends. Not Harry, not Harry, who we will be discussing very soon, but with his other friends in that same circle. They seem to be a lot more closer in the graphic novel series, and they start to notice that Nick and Charlie are becoming closer, and they're like, does he like Charlie? And they don't seem as judgmental as they appear to come across as in the TV show. So I kind of wish we got to see more of Nick's friends be a bit more human and be a bit closer to Nick, and maybe we will get to see that in season 2. But episode 2 does end with Nick googling and searching on my game. So episode 3 is when we have Harry Greene's birthday party. Harry Greene, I hate him so much in both the TV show and the graphic novel series, which is a testament to the actor, quite honestly. Have you ever hated a character so much in Heartstopper than Harry? Name one. And if you say Imogen, I'm going to block you. I mean, obviously, actually, hang on, Ben. Oh no, who's worse, Ben or Harry? Ben or Harry? Damn it. They both do horrible, horrible things. Ben has a more manipulative, gaslighting way about him. Harry is a direct bully who uses horrible language. Oh, God. They're both awful. Actors are great, the actors are great, but the characters are awful. So in episode 3, we have Nick inviting Charlie to Harry Greene's birthday party. And Charlie is hesitant in both of them. He doesn't really want to, but because Nick is asking, he decides to go. They do meet at the party the same way, and that was really cute. But then we do have Harry take Nick away from Charlie and show him to Tori. And Tori's there with a girlfriend, Darcy, and she tells Nick that the same way in pretty much both of them. What we don't get in the graphic novel series, which is quite sad because it's a moment I love in the TV show, is when Tori and Darcy kiss at the party and the music's bumping and Nick's watching them and he's just like he has that smile about him and he's just like this is so wholesome, like this is great, you know, this is amazing. And he loves that for Tori and Darcy. And I love that moment so much in the TV show. Obviously, that would have been hard to have portrayed as well in the graphic novel series because you don't have that music and the kind of ambience of that party. But it was a shame that we didn't really get that kind of moment because that, I feel, definitely inspired Nick to later kiss Charlie and feel comfortable with kissing Charlie because he saw Tori and Darcy do it. So one thing that was hugely different as well in the TV show and the book, and I know a lot of people talked about this online, is when Nick and Harry are talking and Nick is trying to find Charlie and Harry's like, oh, what do you want to find him for? And Nick is like, you know what, Harry, fuck you, happy fucking birthday. That's what Nick does in the graphic novel series. It's a lot more vanilla in the TV show. Again, there's just no way that Netflix wanted Nick to say fuck. They just didn't want to. But anyway, Nick does try and find Charlie again. Charlie had ran off, but he did bump into Ben, and he did tell Ben to leave him alone. That happens the same way in both versions. And then Nick and Charlie, they go off together, and they have their first kiss. It happens the same way. It's like so cute. Like you can see how Charlie's asking these questions like, oh, do you have a thing with Tara? No, I don't. Do you have a crush on anyone? Yes. Or who is she? You know, like that whole back and forth of, I didn't say that they were a she, and like, are they not a she? And then, would you kiss me? You know, that whole thing, honestly, happens the same in both, and it's fabulous. It's fabulous, darling. So they have their first kiss in both of them. It's very sweet, it's very wholesome, and then Harry does interrupt them by shouting for Nick. That's when volume 1 ends of the graphic novel series, with Nick leaving and Charlie sitting there by himself. Episode 3 doesn't end there though. Episode 3 continues and it adapts the very first bit of volume 2, which is when Charlie is home and it's the next morning and it's raining and Nick comes to see Charlie, and that is when episode 3 ends. It ends with Charlie opening the door. I really do like that. That is a good cliffhanger. I feel like if the TV show had ended it when Nick left Charlie at the party after kissing, that would have been a little bit too traumatizing for the kind of wholesomeness of the show. Maybe that's why it kind of continued adapting into volume 2 instead of just ending it where volume 1 ended. That's my theory. But yes, Nick goes to see Charlie in the rain, and that whole scene is pretty much exactly the same as the graphic novel series 2. We have Nick coming in and talking to Charlie in his bedroom, and he says he is having a full-on gay crisis. And then this is where it's a little bit different because Nick stays for a bit longer in the graphic novel series. Also, we have Oliver Spring, Charlie's younger brother, who was cut from the TV show. He comes in, he sees them kissing, and yeah, I think he's like the first person to really find out about them, and they tell him to keep his mouth shut. because if he says anything, they're going to murder him. No, I'm joking. They don't do that, but they do say, keep it a secret. And Oliver's just like, whatever, and just like pushes Charlie in the face. I love that. Following that, we do have Nick leaving with an umbrella, and then Charlie running out after him and giving him a kiss in the street. So that, again, happens the same in both. So with us being like in episode 4 now, we do have things start to divulge a little bit more. We do have a rugby match in episode 4 that happens, and it kind of does happen in the graphic novel series. I don't know if it's really a practice or a full-on game. It isn't really clarified too much, but we do still have this incident on the rugby pitch where Charlie gets injured and Nick takes Charlie inside. It is just inside the changing room in the graphic novel series, whereas in the TV show he has to see the nurse, and Nick comes in, cleans him up a little bit, and so that's like a little bit different. And they also don't get interrupted by anyone in the graphic novel series, whereas in the TV show Isaac walks in and he's very coy with them, like he knows what's going on. He knows. We also have a scene in both where they are in the park or somewhere where there's grass, and they are talking, and Nick is saying more about his bisexuality and that he's researching more, and he doesn't really feel comfortable yet kissing in public. That is still pretty much the same in both too. This is kind of like the seed where things really do change quite dramatically, and that is when Nick is peer pressured into going on a date with Imogen, because Imogen doesn't exist in the graphic novel series. And that is pretty much episode 4, which felt very short, but yeah, it didn't really adapt a whole lot from the graphic novel series, because we're starting to get, more into volume 2, and there's still 4 more episodes to go. So this is where, we really see a lot of change. So then we're going to episode 5, and again, that whole storyline about, Nick and Imogen's dog dying, and especially Olivia Colman's reaction to it. I mean, come on. Episode 5 is all about Charlie's birthday, which very similarly happens in the graphic novel series. We have, Charlie inviting Nick to it. And this is actually when we first meet Elle in the graphic novel series, is when we are bowling. That's the first time. And we also have Alice there, and we also have Tao. And this is where I think there is a kind of like nod to Alid, because Alid is in Radio Silence by Alice Oseman, and in the bowling alley we have Isaac holding Radio Silence. So I feel like that was like a nod towards Alid and how he was supposed to be there instead, at least in the graphic novel series. And then after that we have things play out pretty much the same. We have Charlie go to the bathroom, Tao follows him and has a bit of an argument about Nick, and then Nick overhears it, and Charlie still defends Nick and keeps his secret in both. So that was a really nice touching moment, especially when Nick hugs Charlie outside the bathroom and is really appreciative of the fact that Charlie didn't out him. And you do get such a great sense of the overprotectiveness of Tao, especially in the graphic novel series, because Tao in this moment explains a lot about the bullying, and you do say a little bit more about the bullying and why Tao is so aggressive when it comes to people on the outside coming into this friendship circle. But I do think after rewatching season 1 of Heartstopper 2, I also get that sense of protectiveness from Tao. So I don't find him annoying or anything like that. I find it comical almost of just how protective Tao is, especially his interactions with Nick. But again, I did not like when he threw the ball at Nick's head, okay? Like, that was not okay. Things change a little bit again. So in the graphic novel series, Elle, Tao and Alid leave, and they kind of leave Nick and Charlie, and they are sitting at a table, and that's when Nick gives Charlie his birthday present, which is a photo from his favourite day ever. And the present is still the same in the TV series. However, in the TV series, Elle, Tao and Isaac stay in like the arcade, and they have their own moments, and then Nick and Charlie are standing outside of these like kind of what you call them, and that's when Nick shares the present with Charlie. So that was slightly different, I think, because there was a lot more focus on the other characters in the TV show than in the graphic novel series. And then also the kiss between them, it happens behind a menu in the graphic novel series, whereas in the TV show they plant one on each other right there and then in the arcade. So that was pretty much episode 5, which is called Friend. And then episode 6, Girls. This one definitely changed a lot too. However, there were some really crucial moments in this episode. And what I love about episode 6 is it does develop Tori and Darcy a lot more too than what you do see. There is actually a moment at the very end of volume 2, which is like a Heartstopper mini comic between Tori and Darcy, where they both get locked in that room that locks from like the outside. Like, if you close the door, they're locked in, essentially. Well, that happens in the TV show as well at the end of the episode, but we don't get that epic running scene from everyone else trying to find them. Instead, it is just Tori and Darcy, and they get locked in, and a teacher finally lets them out. They aren't really arguing about Tori having come out and everything being different. So I do like the fact that that was explored more in the TV show. Whereas in the graphic novel version, they're kind of just arguing about like how annoying Darcy is. I went a bit too far ahead. Earlier on, we do have the orchestra in this one. So we have Charlie being part of it, and we also have Nick meeting Tara at the orchestra. We have that incredible moment where Darcy comes up behind Tara and blows the trumpet, and both of them. I love that moment so much. It's just so funny. It made me laugh so much. And then Nick does come out to Tara and says, like, me and Charlie are a thing. And Darcy does say, oh, we found another one, which I love, honestly. Gay rights.
Gay rights.
All the power to the gays. We are everywhere, okay? We are everywhere and nowhere at the same time. This leads to that really cute moment where Nick tells Charlie that he did end up telling someone that they are a couple, and that makes Charlie so happy. So that happens in both too, and it's so cute. Tori appears at that moment as well in the graphic novel series, saying well done to Charlie. That doesn't happen in that episode. That happens in episode 7 of the TV show, where she's like, well done, you've been talking about this crush forever, it was embarrassing. So that bit is like a little bit changed, but it is Tori, so I'm glad that still happened. There isn't a triple date in the graphic novel series between Nick and Charlie, Tara and Darcy, Tao and Elle. There isn't a triple date or anything like that happens. And there wasn't that moment during the orchestra where Tara gets hurled homophobia at her. That doesn't happen, which led to her running to that room that locks, which I've already discussed. So that is episode 6. And that was a little bit all over the place. You're welcome. So getting into episode 7, Bully. I would say like the first half of this episode, and then the last bit of the final episode is the rest of volume 2. Everything from the midpoint of episode 7 to pretty much the midpoint to like the late point of episode 8 is pretty much new to the TV show. In episode 7, we begin with a cinema trip, and Harry is present at this cinema trip when Nick thought that he wouldn't be. In the TV show, Ben is there, whereas in the graphic novel series, Ben isn't there. And I think that was to set up a later confrontation between Ben and Charlie, because, you know, the whole cinema thing happens the same. We have that moment where Nick calls Charlie Char, and that was like this wholesome moment, and Charlie's like, do it again. That happens in both. There's also like the first sign of Charlie's eating disorder when he kind of refuses not having food. That is just like a very small sign. It could be nothing, but you know, when you see what happens in like volume 3 and volume 4, things do happen. Sorry, that's a spoiler for what's to come, but yeah, that kind of foreshadowing of that is present in both the TV show and the graphic novel series. Right after the film's played, we have Harry being an absolute twat, and he does confront Charlie. He's like, oh, you don't seem gay, you just sound gay. Do you like musicals? Who do you like? Do you have a crush on Nick? And then like Nick tries to defend him, Charlie goes off. And then it is like a tiny little bit different because Ben does confront Charlie outside of the cinema. It really makes Charlie feel small. It really does gaslight the hell out of Charlie and make him feel pathetic and like his existence is worthless, which is honestly just, you know, actually I feel like I do despise Ben a bit more. But then Harry does use the F word about Charlie in both versions. So Nick punches Harry in both the TV show and the graphic novel series, leading to Olivia Colman picking Nick up from the cinema. And she's like, you know, violence is not the answer. And then Nick's like, yeah, but Harry said a really nasty word. And Olivia Colman, Nick's mum, says Charlie's a really special friend, isn't he? In both versions, which I love. I love that. Honestly, I feel like every single Olivia Colman scene, well, apart from the scene where earlier on in one of the episodes when they're watching a film together, Pirates of the Caribbean, Nick is seeing Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom, and, you know, he is attracted to both of them. You can see him looking between them, and yeah, he's attracted to both. I mean, we didn't get that scene in the graphic novel series. That and the part where Nick tells her about his dilemma with Charlie's birthday and Imogen. But again, that's because Imogen isn't in the graphic novel series. So following this, there is a huge divergence between them, because we needed something for like an entire like last half of that episode and the entire first half of the next episode for a conflict. And in the graphic novel series, after the cinema trip accident and Nick has a black eye from Harry, we have Nick and Charlie outside of Charlie's house, and Charlie sees his eye and says, what happened? Nick tells him, I was in a fight with Harry because of what he said about you. There was two totally different reactions from graphic novel Charlie and TV show Charlie. So graphic novel Charlie is really thankful, and it's like, I can't believe you did that for me. He feels like so much love there. And then they go to the beach. Literally right after the whole cinema incident, they go to the beach. And then that's, as you know, what will happen. However, we're not there yet with the TV show. With the TV show, Charlie has a totally different kind of reaction to that. Charlie feels, especially because of what happened with Ben at the cinema, and I feel like that's why that was such a crucial moment in the TV show for Ben to confront him and make Charlie feel as worthless as he felt. That really bled into Charlie feeling like the whole incident with Harry and Nick having a black eye was Charlie's fault. And because of that, Charlie wanted to get away from Nick because he thought that he was hurting Nick. And that is why we had that conflict in the rest of episode 7 and then going into episode 8. Whereas that didn't exist in the graphic novel series because Charlie has a totally different reaction to that. We also don't have anything with Tao and Charlie falling out either. Tao doesn't get in a fight with Harry. He doesn't really have any kind of interaction with Harry in the graphic novel series at all. There's one thing I love about the TV show are the funny quips that Tao has when it comes to him and Harry. You know, and we don't get Nick telling Imogen that she isn't for him, and we don't get Charlie confiding in Tori. You don't really get to see Tao and Elle get closer either. In fact, you don't even get Sports Day at all in the graphic novel series. Literally, all of this stuff here is just very original to the TV show. And that means we also don't get the moment during Sports Day when Nick is, you know, doing rugby and he sees Charlie and he goes towards Charlie in front of everyone, takes his hand and takes him into the school, and then we have that corridor scene. We don't get that in the graphic novel series, and it's one of my favourite scenes from the TV show. It's just so beautifully done, and it's such a great way for them to reconnect after the like kind of drama that's happened between them, and it's just like the next step in their relationship. But again, doesn't exist in the graphic novel series. The whole Sports Day segment, Isaac throwing that javelin, didn't happen. So yes, then we get to the beach. Let's get away. Well, actually they're on the train, and the train scene is almost similar, except Alice Oseman isn't in the graphic novel series. I like the TV show better for having Alice Oseman in there. But yeah, they go to the photo booth still. That happens pretty much the same. I love this whole beach segment so much, and when I reacted to this moment, this entire episode actually, in the reaction video I did for the Netflix TV show, watching it for the first time, when I saw that this episode had that beach wave during the title credit, I thought, oh my god, this is going to have the beach scene in. I freaking love the beach scene. So we still have Nick declaring to the world, I like Charlie Spring in a romantic way, not just a friend way. Like that whole thing, like that plays out exactly the same. And we also have, you know, like Charlie being like, I never thought this would happen to me. And they do have Nellie with them in the graphic novel series, but not in the TV show version. But I guess that is because they do want that scene to be just Nick and Charlie. And as cute as Nellie is, we did not want to distract from that. And then Nick coming out to Olivia Colman. I mean, Nick's mum. Habits, again, the same in both. We have Nick sitting down saying, you know, Charlie's my boyfriend, I'm bisexual, like, bisexual is where I like boys and girls, and Olivia Colman / Nick's mum is like, yeah, I wasn't born in the 18th century, I know what bisexual is. That happens the same in both, and I love it. I remember that moment so well, because I just love that whole scene in general. It's just so important and so fantastic. And it was acted so fantastically as well. Yeah, that happened the same. And then there is a montage in like both too. There is like a graphic novel montage, and then there's the TV show montage, which leads into, you know, Nick and Charlie lying on the beach and then everything around them turning kind of, you know, animated and drawn. Illustrated even. So that's when season 1 ends and volume 2 of the graphic novel series ends. So yeah, it was just fantastic. I absolutely loved rewatching the show so much and rereading the first 2 volumes. I love it so much. Heartstopper honestly is, like, I'm seeing people, because I work in a bookstore and we keep selling out of Heartstopper every single weekend. In fact, no Alice Oseman books at all, because all of their other books just sell out like that as well. Everybody wants Heartstopper, everybody loves Heartstopper, everybody loves Alice Oseman and their other works too. I just love to say it. I love saying the love that this fandom has shown so much. I see everyone on Twitter just being so incredibly amazing about this show and showing so much love for Nick and Charlie, Tao and Elle, and Tara and Darcy, and just like for everyone in the TV show. It's beautiful to say. I love it so, so much. I love the Heartstopper fandom. It is so positive, so light. I love it because it reflects Heartstopper itself. And Heartstopper is just imbued with so much love and light and positivity and representation. The TV show captured that so beautifully too. The TV show is literally a perfect adaptation because not only did it take like literally almost everything that made the graphic novel series amazing, important, and fantastic, but it also added to it as well. And I feel like that's what makes a perfect adaptation, because, you know, a perfect adaptation to me is not something that is word for word and takes everything the exact same, but actually takes the source material and makes it its own and adds to it, you know. And I feel like the TV show added to what Alice was already writing and illustrating. You know, we got to see the characters around Nick and Charlie. We got to see them develop. We got to see them shine. And it just made it that much more of a well-rounded, wholesome, fantastic, you know, experience. You know, I didn't just feel like a TV show. It felt like an experience. And again, I want to say, I never had this growing up. I never had representation like this growing up. And I feel like I lost so much from my childhood by not understanding who I was and, you know, what my sexuality meant to me as a person. And it's just so nice and so brilliant that the kids today have something like this to grow up with and see themselves reflected and know as they're growing up that there's nothing wrong with them and that they should be loved and that they can find love. So yes, I love it. I love it. Heartstopper is the best adaptation ever, okay? The best. I've said it, and you can't change my mind. And yeah, I think that concludes my essay on the similarities, the differences between the TV show and the graphic novel series. But thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I hope you liked the video as well. Please leave a like if you did. Subscribe if you haven't already. I have links to my other Heartstopper videos down in the description box if you want to check them out. Leave a comment down below as well. Let me know how much you love the TV show. No hate. No hate allowed. This is a safe space for all of my LGBTQ plus friends. I see you, I love you, and just keep being you because you're an icon. So yeah, I do have links to my social medias in the description box too if you want to check me out on any of those. And I will hopefully see you in the next video. Bye!